one of the biggest changes in digital media specifically is the rise of video and how video has become in some ways a dominant form of consumption.
Welcome to Startup Health Now, the podcast where we celebrate the entrepreneurs and innovators who are transforming health. I'm your host, Logan Plaster. For the next few weeks, as we gear up for the launch of the next season of this podcast, which will drop after Labor Day, we'll be bringing you replays of our favorite episodes from the past. This week, we're bringing back a conversation I had with Jon Miller, a member of the Startup Health board. Miller is best known for being a former CEO of AOL, head of digital media at News Corp, and chief executive of the media powerhouse IAC. In our conversation, we talk about how Miller's experience in business, finance, and media translates to health moonshots, these audacious goals that guide us at Startup Health. Specifically, I wanted to know what tools of media could be used to speed up health innovation and help startups bring their solutions to market more successfully. What I learned was that many of the advancements and opportunities that Miller has seen in media over the last couple decades, advancements in consumerism and community, are absolutely core to improving health in scalable digital ways. But I'll let Jon explain that vision and why he's more excited than ever to support a global army of health transformers. Stick around. Kind of what I want to start with is that you've been in digital media a long time. The platforms change, the strategies change, but in many ways, it feels like the more things change, the more they stay the same. And so given your experience, I'm curious what you've seen as a through line of your professional life as it pertains to digital media.
Well, it's a great question because we are probably in terms of digital media, we're probably, I guess, in the third wave, I would say, of the industry and of the experience. So it's a great question. I think one of the big things that has changed is, in some ways, the democratization of it, where now we have the so-called creator economy and the ability for anybody to be an influencer who chooses to be and can get a following, and there are platforms that enable that. So that is definitely a big change. Though, to your point, there were iterations of this before. There were blogs. There still are. There were vlogs, if you like, and there still are. So it is, in that sense, iterative. Just to keep balancing the two, I think one of the biggest changes in digital media specifically is the rise of video and how video has become in some ways a dominant form of consumption. Another that is more of a through line is that it really is about how you relate to a specific audience and how you term in the sector is how you feed the beast, what you're giving that audience on a regular basis. And that is in some ways unique to digital media. On the other hand, that's what television is and has been. It's been, for the most part, a daily experience, and certainly the news business has always been. So I do think there are some things that change, and some things that evolve, and some things that and one of the big things is how it's really about how well you relate to a specific audience.
Are there elements to today's trends in digital media that excite you? I mean, part of it is just a wave you have to ride and figure out what the next strategy is, and part of it is really opening up new doors. You mentioned democratization. What elements of that make you optimistic for the future?
Well, one of the things that excites me, and I spend a lot of time on, continue to, is around the interaction of community and the creation of content, which I think relates very much to startup health. So it's where there's collaborative innovation, where there's community underneath everything, and the community is active participant in what is produced in one form or another, as opposed to just a passive consumer of something produced by others. And I think that is an evolution. And I think it continues to grow. And if you follow such things as Web3 and as it's so called, and I don't know how much I should use terms of the moment here, but it's really about community engagement and community involvement and community ownership in what's produced. So it is in my view another wave that we're about to experience.
Well, you mentioned Startup Health, so it's a good segue. We're having this conversation because you are on Startup Health's board, and we want to introduce you to our broader audience. How did you come upon Startup Health? How did you get introduced to the idea of supporting health innovators globally? after a long career in digital media?
Yeah. So, as you said, I've been in digital media for quite some time, and also an investor in this and related sectors, digital media and related sectors, which is really, as it evolved for me personally, about innovation, about collaboration, about how you grow and scale companies, and all of those things became applicable when I met the folks at StartUp Health and Steve and Unity, whom I was introduced to by another of our distinguished board members, Esther Dyson, when I was talking to her some time ago of my interest in this specific area around health and health innovation, and whether or not some of the lessons that I thought were generally permeating a lot of the rest of the world in terms of innovation and collaboration and community that were not yet as evident, it seemed to me, in the health sector and the health development sector. And then Esther, agreed, and she said there's a place where that might be occurring, and that's what
I wonder if you could share any specifics. So you mentioned some of the strategies you've seen work in media and elsewhere, and let's apply it in health. And we're sort of talking generally about how Startup Health is trying to apply collaborative methods and community. But I wonder if you could use any case study examples, anything you've seen work in the world, and how you'd like to see that in health as well.
Well, I think one of the things is just making people aware, and in this case, people can be a community or it can be the relevant companies and parties who are directly working in it, because many times people are unaware of, as the expression goes, what the right hand and the left hand are doing. But in this case, it could be something in India and something in Mexico and something in the United States. And so, media is really historically very good at surfacing these things and putting them in a common place where they can be understood and accessed together. And I think that's really one of the parallels that I would draw, because I think in a collaborative world, the first underlying thing is who's doing what, and then what makes the most sense to try to work together on.
Yeah.
So how do you find that out? And some of the more traditional ways, a journal or something like that, a medical journal, very slow process. And so while extraordinarily helpful overall, it's not going to increase the pace at which these developments occur.
Got it.
And media, in my belief, can.
Yeah, awareness is key. You have to know what's going on around the world. We've experienced that firsthand. Is there an area of health? Is there a health moonshot that you're particularly passionate about?
Well, first of all, I'm passionate about the idea of moonshots. So I think and that's one of the things that attracted me to Startup Health, even before it was articulated. So I should just back up 1 second and say I was an early investor in Startup Health. I'd have to check the number of years, but it's got to be close to double digits at this point. So quite early on. And even though we didn't articulate it in the way we do now, we were talking about these kind of moonshots and as the real future of what we were trying to accomplish. And so that idea itself excites me, because I think there are many different people and organizations working on pieces of the puzzle, but it's, to me, the truly exciting thing is how do you take these things that matter so much to the world at large and try to have a concerted, modern effort around it, which is, I think, what we're talking about. What is actually composes the modern way of doing this that hopefully is an accelerant to the entire process. So with that, that's what excited me fundamentally. My own personal interests are things that tend to be in, I'll call it, the wellness space. And as I get a little bit older, I'm interested in longevity too. It's funny how you find yourself interested in that topic as time goes on. But I think, and actually in longevity science, it's an area you follow, the advances, it feels like we are just on the precipice of an amazing series of advances in that regard. And it's really a way of approaching, in some ways, many different diseases, and obviously on life. But those are areas of personal interest. But again, the thing that to me is the most exciting of all is the process and the idea of how you focus on these moonshots.
What are your thoughts, given your expertise in media and digital media, on how we can really push to the next level, let's say that we've just done version 1 of bringing media tools to health innovation, to really take that to the next level and say, look, the first step is awareness. It's global awareness. We got to know what everyone's working on in order to collaborate. Yeah. So how do we take that initiative to the next level in your mind?
Yeah, great question. I think, I'll use the word modern again, and the tools and the platforms continue to rapidly evolve in the media, and I'll call it collaboration sector, as well as the hard science areas. So both those are continuing to evolve at the same time. And I think, we've seen the rise of new platforms such as TikTok as a consumer use at an extraordinary fast pace. I mean, if you just look at the adoption curve of kind of the layers of technology that have happened at a consumer level, it's increasing. So the ability to introduce and have people adopt the relevant tech for collaboration, for example, I think is greater than ever, and that's something that we should really foster. The second is, and this is an interesting thing, if you look at the history of the industry, it used to be that the greatest technology was in some ways military, that then filtered to corporate, that then filtered to the consumer. I can't comment extensively on the military area. It's not my area, but it's no longer true that the enterprise, if you will, gets better technology and better technology first than the consumer. For example, the enterprise version of the iPhone is the iPhone. And that was not true in 10 years ago. It would have been the enterprise version of something was the heavyweight, more fully featured kind of experience and use cases, and the consumer was a watered down version of that. That's not true anymore, as I was saying. So the consumer versions of things are now as good as anything else in many cases. And what's important about that is that means everybody can have that in their possession and use it. So I think the more that we can encourage the adoption of these broad platforms and use them for the kinds of purposes that are relevant to Startup Health and its companies, that's a real key.
Yeah.
Because those versions now are as good as anything anywhere.
You mentioned TikTok specifically, and just the power of the virality of that platform and that type of platform. I'll tell you, I speak with founders every day. They're pretty intimidated by the idea of diving into a platform like that and trying to speak a whole new language. And I wonder if in your position as an advisor and an investor, if you've got any words of wisdom to a founder who's maybe intimidated, not just about TikTok, but about sort of modern digital media in general, and just wrapping their heads around a whole new language every few years.
Yeah, well, actually, the end of your question is an interesting coda, which is every few years, because it does continue to evolve. So that is a part of this, that it just as soon as you get the hang of one thing, there's another platform and a set of tools. And so it does raise the question of where do you place your bets, kind of thing. And that's perfectly legitimate question. I don't know if TikTok is yet the greatest collaboration platform for the kind of thing that we're talking about. Though it certainly is that they've understood virality in a way that is different than the other media platforms, and that is worth noting and taking stock of as we think about things. But what they have done, that in addition to that, that's so, in my view, brilliant. I'm not here to be a shill for TikTok, but we have to recognize what's going on, is they've created, and this goes to another part of your question, they've created a set of tools that are actually very easy for people to understand and use for that purposes of that platform, that relate around to, video, music, and other, forms of popular consumption. And they've done that very, very well. So I think this goes to my point about what's now in the hands of the consumer. So I think, it's up to us to identify the right tool sets we can encourage the adoption of by the Startup Health community that will further enhance collaboration. And I would say that's something that we're actively engaged in.
Yeah, it's something I've been exploring myself. We've had a few companies sort of hit gold with platforms like TikTok and Reels on Instagram, and it's typically through. It has to be the right avenue. Whether it's skincare, whether it's thinking through, vitamin health, things that might resonate more with that community. You mentioned a second ago you have a personal interest in longevity, in some issues like that, and I wonder if you've thought through, if you could wave a magic wand, is there a particular product or platform or type of startup that you would love to see created in the next year or two?
Well, okay. So, all right. So I'll give you a specific answer. I don't know if you're followers of developments in the longevity space, but there's a scientist at Harvard, David Sinclair, who is one of the leading lights in that. And he is coming out very recently with the framework of the longevity is essentially a failure of information processing and capacity between the various systems and cells of the body. And I think that I would not know. I am not a scientist. I am not an authority, but that has the ring of truth.
Yeah,
because it's in my mind coincident with certain theories that are current in physics around the information theory of the universe and other things. So it just feels really interesting to me, and I'd love to see us as he's publishing. He's starting to talk about it. I think his formal publishing is about to come out. I'd love to see us be at the forefront of that.
Very nice, very nice. All right, last question for you. Startup Health just hit our 420th investment. We're really sort of scaling up for this next phase with dedicated moonshots around type 1 diabetes and Alzheimer's. And I wonder what you are most excited about concerning your work on the board here at Startup Health in the next year or so.
Yeah, again, I think it's I gave you one of the area of personal interest, but I think at the Startup Health level, I'm interested now, and I think we have the scale of the platform to really be impactful to all of those 440 companies, hopefully, and many more. And so to me, I'm sort of looking at it at a kind of system level, which is how do we do that? How do I work with the team to help make that platform and connector and the convener and the information processing, going back to what I thought a moment ago, of all of that, be as effective and impactful as possible. Because I think we now have a certain scale that allows us to think in those terms.
That's awesome. I love those lessons about communication and about making the world aware of what's going on so that we can really stand on each other's shoulders and move forward faster. So, Jon, final word?
Yeah, it's saying in my experience, but some of the lessons in media, which are media is designed to scale, right? The systems that are media. And so that's the way I'm always looking for and thinking about. And I think that's what we want to see is scale in a way with Startup Health, scale in a way that reduces time to effectiveness in these key areas. So that's the way I try to contribute.
That's great, Jon. Wise words. I appreciate you taking the time with us and excited for what's next for Startup Health.
Yeah, well, thank you. And we'll talk again soon.
All right, take care. Be well.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Startup Health Now. We'll be back again with another episode next week.